あ、何か。
Shogun's finale was beautifully cathartic, don't you think? And looking back, the show had a solid roster of some of the most eccentric characters as of late. The details of their lives, their habits, and their nature are unlike anything we've seen before. You would think Lady Mariko, Lord Toranaga, or John Blackthorne would be the ones catching our eyes, but ironically, we were left dumbfounded by the Shakespearean nature of Kashigi Yabushige's character. His sadism, his thirst for blood, his inordinate self-preservation, his opportunistic mentality, and of course, his ever-shifting loyalties. When you pin all these points together, Yabushige is such a hated character that he'd be right at home hanging out with the Lannisters in Game of Thrones. There is nothing this guy wouldn't do to keep his head on, which is probably why his death felt so satisfying. Of course, this dark, twisted, humorous, and unhinged character just fits perfectly in Shogun's otherwise brooding premise, but did you know he was also based on a real-life samurai from the Sengoku period? Well, today, we're going to talk about the life of Honda Masanobu. This is going to be a fascinating one, so we're going to get right into it, but before we do, we have a very small request for our viewers. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The early life of Honda Masanobu. Becoming a samurai warlord during the Sengoku period of Japan was no joke. Back then, the realm was under constant civil strife as the country lacked one strong leader, which allowed the powerful daimyos of the state to fight countless battles to reach the top. Honda Masanobu was born in 1538 and grew up during this war-filled era. He did not come from a coveted lineage, but it was the alliances he forged in his life which allowed Masanobu to leave behind a rich legacy. Honda Masanobu was the second son of Honda Toshimasa, who was a vassal of the Matsudaira family in the Mikawa province. His father served Matsudaira Hirotada, who was actually Tokugawa Ieyasu's father. Growing up in a samurai household, everything was fine for Masanobu until Matsudaira Hirotada was assassinated by one of his own men. After this incident, his family fled, so what became of the fate of Masanobu's branch of the Honda clan still remains a mystery. As history dictates, in his early 20s, Masanobu apparently joined the Iko-Iki sect, which was a cult devoted to the followers of Shin Buddhism founded by the Japanese monk Shinran. This group was mainly composed of warrior monks, ronin, local lords, and peasants who opposed the authority of their daimyo and samurai lords. The Iki leveraged their advancements in firearm warfare of that era and quickly became a force to be reckoned with, constantly challenging the government's control. Plus, the generous accessibility of firearms allowed even ordinary people to become proficient cannoneers within a short period of time, further bolstering the movement's strength. Meanwhile, Tokugawa Ieyasu, who saw his father being murdered by his own retainers, fully focused on rebuilding his clan and keeping his most important allies happy. He rewarded them with castles in the Mikawa province, allowing them to strengthen his position amidst the changing political landscape. But to his loss, the Mikawa province was slowly transforming into a key hub for the Iko-Iki movement, where the peasants joined forces with the militant monks in order to challenge the traditional feudal order. To make matters worse, tensions between samurai and warrior monks further escalated as the Iki resisted the multiple attempts from Ieyasu's samurai retainers to tax their temples. Realizing that these commoners were becoming a major pain in the ass, Ieyasu raided the Honshoji temple, which sadly ended in his defeat and gave him the much-needed signal of the growing threat posed by these well-organized warrior monks. Ieyasu then understood the seriousness of the situation, so he gathered his forces to confront and eliminate the Iki rebellion, leading to the pivotal battle of Azukizaka in 1564. Now, you might be wondering why this is even relevant with the guy we're discussing today. Well, by then, Masanobu was practically living the Iki way of life, and even though his lineage hailed from a long line of loyalists to the Tokugawa family, he defied tradition by aligning himself with the Iko-Iki, fully embracing their ideals in defiance of the stuffy feudal norms. The Battle of Azukizaka was not an easy one. It was intense, and Masanobu was just 26 years old back then. Although he fought fiercely and personally engaged in combat, Masanobu suffered a devastating leg injury that left him with a permanent limp. On the opposing side, Ieyasu was only 21 years old and personally led his forces into the fray with remarkable bravery despite sustaining multiple wounds. The battle ended with Yasu gaining victory over the Iko-Iki, and Honda Masanobu escaped the battlefield to seek refuge with Matsunaga Hisahide, the daimyo of the Yamato province. Now, even though the latter was a cranky old man, he was revered for the tales of his handsome youth. Hisahide saw immense potential in Masanobu and believed he had the potential to become someone of great strength. Meanwhile, Iyasu's reputation relentlessly grew amongst other warlords who were easily won over with his valor in battle. On the other hand, Honda Masanobu decided to part ways with Matsunaga Hisahide and went on an adventure across Japan to broaden his horizons and hone his skills in assessing people's character. During this time, he learned a lot about people as he adapted to diverse social settings and understood much more than their ways of warfare. While he was away, another famous samurai warlord named Okubo Tadeo extended his support by caring for his wife and children. It was also Tadeo who mediated a reconciliation between Masanobu and Yasu in 1569. By then, Masanobu was a seasoned 32-year-old samurai who had garnered a lot of worldly values. Ieyasu understood his talents and felt he could be a valuable addition to the Tokugawa clan, which eventually led to them reconciling emotionally. During this time, Oda Nobunaga was slowly rising as the most influential daimyo in Japan. Finally, in 1573, he ascended as the Shogun of Japan after his forces defeated the Ashikaga shogunate and sent the ex-shogun into exile. However, in 1582, Nobunaga was assassinated at the Honnoji incident by one of his closest generals, along with his heir, sparking a succession crisis within the Oda clan as all his remaining sons vied for leadership. This was exactly what brought Nobunaga's former general, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, to the limelight. He rose to power after avenging his fallen lord's death and took control of the Oda clan until Nobunaga's eldest grandson came of age to effectively succeed the late shogun. After quelling most of the internal uprisings, Hideyoshi then invited Nobunaga's second surviving son, Nobukatsu, to Osaka Castle to pay his respects, which would effectively shift the power dynamic. However, Nobukatsu went absolutely rogue, executing some of his own retainers who he suspected to be turncoats. This was more than enough excuse for Hideyoshi to launch an assault against him, leading to the Komaki campaign. Well, Nobukatsu was not alone and went to Tokugawa Ieyasu for an alliance. In all the forthcoming battles that took place, Honda Masanobu emerged as an important figure, rallying Tokugawa's army against the enemy. Sadly, despite several battles, neither side gained a decisive advantage, ultimately resulting in peace negotiations between Hideyoshi, Ieyasu, and Nobukatsu, who allowed Toyotomi Hideyoshi to retain his position as the shogun of Japan. Honda Masanobu's rise to power. During this period, Masanobu excelled in negotiating with several daimyos to join the Tokugawa clan, which really allowed his administrative powers to shine through, thus making him a highly valued retainer by Ieyasu. However, the limp he had developed as a result of his first war always came back to haunt him. Honda Masanobu had a famous relative named Honda Tadakatsu, who achieved a legendary status as a samurai for never receiving a single wound in battle. While he was revered by other warlords, Masanobu was constantly disparaged by them for his lack of efficiency in combat. These samurais mocked his permanent limp behind his back and called him the man with putrid guts. But Tokugawa Ieyasu was no stranger to Masanobu's strategic prowess from his early days and immensely valued his bureaucratic skills. Eventually, their relationship evolved into one of mutual understanding, as they developed a strange code in social settings, especially when it came to negotiation and politics. In the court, Masanobu would subtly express his disagreement by pretending to fall asleep or feigning disinterest every time he wanted to counter something that Ieyasu said, without directly disrespecting him. And to contrast that, he would highly praise his master when Masanobu agreed with something Ieyasu said. So, for all the right reasons, Masanobu's intellect and knack for deciphering Ieyasu's intentions earned him admiration within the Tokugawa clan. This was only proven when Masanobu pretended to be asleep, and Ieyasu often changed his stance based on Masanobu's insights, thus highlighting their growing friendship and trust. Despite the turbulent times of constant betrayal, scheming, and warfare, Masanobu's strategic acumen in negotiation and forward thinking often allowed the other lords to refer to him as Iyasu's brain. Now, after Japan's most powerful figure, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, passed away in 1598, he left a huge power vacuum behind, just like the one that came up after Oda Nobunaga's death. But Hideyoshi was smart enough to know he could not make the same mistakes his predecessor did. On his deathbed, Hideyoshi established a regency government, which consisted of the council of 5 elders to ensure a smooth succession for his 5-year-old heir, Hideyori, once he came of age. But after Hideyoshi's demise, Tokugawa Ieyasu's growing influence raised severe concerns among the remaining council of elders, who were not very sure if he was loyal to the Toyotomi government. I mean, he was fraternizing with the past enemies of the clan and went on to marry 6 times in order to forge alliances, so the doubt was pretty obvious. This is when Ishida Mitsunari, being the hardcore Toyotomi loyalist he was, rallied all the existing Toyotomi retainers to form the Western Army. But the situation escalated with the death of council member Maeda Toshi, allowing Ieyasu to recruit more members from the Toyotomi clan, capitalizing on their weakened position without a strong adult male heir. Simultaneously, Mitsunari knew he couldn't waste any further time and leveraged his allegiance to the Toyotomi cause to forge other key alliances against Iyasu's supporters amidst the chaos. As a response, many daimyos pledged their allegiance to Iyasu, thus forming the Eastern Army. Honda Masanobu became an important part of this army, especially during the developments of the events that set the stage for the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. Apparently, before the main battle, Iyasu's son, Hidetada, led an army of samurai alongside Honda Masanobu, but he was young, arrogant, and oversmart, because despite his father's direct orders, Hidetada proceeded to besiege Sanada Matsuyuki's Ueda castle. Although Masanobu tried his best to reason with him, Hidetada went in with the siege of Ueda. Despite Tokugawa's significantly larger numbers of around 38,000 men against Sanada's mere 2,000, they struggled to breach the latter's strategically well-defended position, causing Masanobu and Hidetada to arrive late to the main battle of Sekigahara. Nonetheless, the odds turned in favor of the Tokugawa clan as most warlords betrayed Ishida Mitsunari's army and pledged their allegiance to Iyasu. After Tokugawa's victory at Sekigahara, Masanobu helped his lord execute all the remaining leaders to completely decimate the Western army. Legend has it that a year after the Battle of Sekigahara in 1601, Honda Masanobu was the one who diligently negotiated with the Imperial Court of Japan to secure the title of Shogun for Tokugawa Ieyasu. It was his strategic efforts that played a crucial role in Ieyasu's ascension to shogunate, marking a huge turn in the course of Japanese history for the next 2.5 centuries. Honda Masanobu's late life. Despite having eliminated or converted all of his enemies into allies, Ieyasu still faced a lingering threat to his rule, as Toyotomi Hideyoshi's son, Hideyori, was still very much alive. After he came of age, Hideyori was influenced by his mother, Yorodono's ambition to restore the Toyotomi clan to its former glory, and began to gather his support from all the samurais who opposed Iyasu's rule. He claimed his legitimacy as Japan's rightful ruler and went on to threaten the Tokugawa shogunate despite Iyasu's orders for Hideyori to leave Osaka Castle. So, in 1614, Ieyasu initiated a siege to completely squash Hideyori's resistance and remove the threat to his rule. Honda Masanobu was considerably older during this time, yet he fully participated in the siege, commanding his forces to support the shogunate. By the latter part of 1615, the castle finally fell to the siege, leaving Hideyori and his mother to commit seppuku within the burning walls of Osaka Castle. With the end of the Toyotomi line in this inferno, there were no longer any significant threats left to challenge the Tokugawa shogunate's control over Japan. However, despite successfully unifying Japan, Ieyasu's health began deteriorating during the one-year campaign against the Toyotomi clan and its allies. The wounds he had sustained in this battle had never really healed, and probably shortened his life. Tokugawa passed away at the age of 73 after entrusting the shogunate to his son Hidetada. Meanwhile, Masanobu, his loyal friend, followed him in death around 50 days later at the age of 79. Even his death was romanticized in history with the context of their friendship. From there on, Masanobu was remembered as one of Iyasu's most dedicated retainers, renowned for his strategic thinking, keen judgment of character, and negotiation skills. He left behind a strong legacy for his clan, allowing them to reign in his domain in the Sagami province. Although Kashigi Yabushige died at the end of Shogun, we think the biggest similarity between his character and his real-life counterpart would have to be their strategic ability and forward thinking. Nonetheless, I think I like the fictional Yabushige better than the original one. Do you guys have a preference? Were you cheering for Yabushige, or were you cheering for his death? Let us know in the comments section down below, and if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.